Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Morgan Wolf. Let's get to your top headlines for today. Several state lawmakers are encouraging people to support this Friday's ICE Out of Minnesota Day of Action. At the Capitol this morning, they reiterated the day is about no work, school, or shopping. This comes one day after students and parents spoke out about the fear that they say the current immigration enforcement is causing in Minnesota schools. They shared their experiences about schools being closed and classmates staying home out of fear of possibly being detained. Local small businesses have also expressed concerns over safety and employees and customers. Last week, Twin Cities faith leaders made the initial call for a day for all economic activity to halt. Today, Democratic lawmakers joined in that call.
This pause is to send a message, a clear message that cannot be ignored. Our communities deserve to live without fear. Our children deserve stability, and Minnesota will not accept policies that terrorize families and undermine our local economy.
The group of students and parents that spoke yesterday also pushed for people to take part in Friday's economic blackout. Also today, state leaders are taking their fights to get ICE out of the Twin Cities straight to the Trump administration. 2 weeks since the death of Renee Good at the hands of an ICE officer, the Attorney General and legal experts are calling out the president for weaponizing federal officers and shielding ICE from consequences when they use force against protesters.
The administration is attempting to allow ICE and CBP to operate above the law. And what is happening in Minnesota is part of an overall authoritarian agenda. It's a plan to pit our constitutional rights toe-to-toe against unchecked federal power.
If you want to say, is this government tyrannical? Well, one pure indicator is that armed agents of the state, who you don't even know who they are because they're masked, can kick your door in, beat you down, and kill you. Once that happens, you know without any doubt, you are in a tyrannical society.
Well, today's press conference adds to the stories of people who say that ICE violated their constitutional rights. This comes a day after a group of local police chiefs argued that ICE officers are harassing and racially profiling people in their neighborhoods, including their own officers.
If it is happening to our officers, it pains me to think of how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day. It has to stop.
Border Patrol Commander at Large Greg Bovino and the president himself went on a defensive, saying the only people being targeted by ICE agents are dangerous criminals.
Our operations are lawful, they're targeted, and they're focused on individuals who pose a serious threat to this community. They are not random, and they are not political. They are about removing criminals who are actively harming Minneapolis neighborhoods.
At the same time, though, yesterday at President Trump's own press conference, he admitted ICE officers sometimes can slip up.
And you know, they're going to make mistakes sometimes. ICE is going to be too rough with somebody, or you know, they're dealing with rough people. They're going to make a mistake. Sometimes it can happen. We feel terribly.
Also new today, the man who was shot by an ICE agent in the leg last week in Minneapolis will stay in ICE custody until a trial. According to the Department of Homeland Security, Julio Cesar Sosa Salis was shot while assaulting the ICE agent with a shovel after a vehicle chase and crash in North Minneapolis. Sosa Salis is in the country illegally from Venezuela. Another man, Alfredo Aljuna, who was also in the country illegally, will also be staying in ICE custody. That is after he allegedly assaulted the federal officer with a broomstick. Agents say that they were trying to arrest Aljuna in the first place before the altercation, believing that he was someone else they were looking for. According to testimony today, 2 ICE agents in the vehicle chased Aljuna, who was alone in the car. After Aljuna crashed and ran, the agent driving chased him. The other agent checked to see if anyone else was in that car, then went back to the ICE car and stayed there and did not witness the fight between Aljuna and the ICE agent. So that account in a courtroom is very different from what DHS said just one day after that incident happened. Originally, federal officials said that Sosa Solis was the person that they were after who took off from police and crashed in North Minneapolis. According to the Department of Homeland Security, he has previously been convicted for driving without a license and arrested for 2 counts of giving a false name to a peace officer. Now agents say that Alfredo Aljuna, who is the one that they were chasing before the incident, according to the department, they say he entered the country illegally in 2023 and did not show up for an immigration hearing. We are also going to be taking a closer look at Greg Bovino's claims. Bovino alleges that hundreds of undocumented criminals have been released from state custody, but the head of Minnesota's prisons says that his data is not lining up with their numbers. Jennifer Hoff has more on what he says the records show.
All right, good afternoon.
In his first public news conference since last month's immigration enforcement surge in Minneapolis, Greg Bovino defended agent tactics.
Our officers remain professional, focused, courteous, and committed to the mission.
He also says the federal agency arrested 113 violent offenders over the weekend, while also alleging nearly 1,400 undocumented criminals with an immigration hold are in state custody. Department of Corrections Commissioner Paul Schnell denying that.
We simply cannot figure out where these names are coming from.
Schnell says there are only 207 non-U.S. citizens in the prison system right now. And in a news release says state law requires his agency notify ICE when someone in their custody is undocumented, and it's up to ICE to place a hold and arrange to pick them up.
We have not had a request from them to say, turn over the 207 people we have detainers for in your custody. No.
Bovino also accuses the state of releasing nearly 500 undocumented criminals with holds. Schnell lists several people the feds have cited, saying public records show they were either never in state custody, were taken into ICE custody, or are in another jurisdiction.
Here we are trying to work together and collaborate, and yet this information is being put out that's just fundamentally false. And that's why I think we want to make sure that we're trying to correct the record. And trust me, if there was a human error made on our part, we're going to own that, address it, fix it, figure out what happened. But to date, we have not found a single instant of that.
Schnell says that the Department of Corrections has never been in violation of an ICE detainer. Last year, data shows that they released 84 people to ICE, notifying them and even facilitating a transfer. In developing news, the offices of Governor Walz, Twin Cities Mayors Jacob Frey and Kali Herr, and Attorney General Keith Ellison confirming their offices received federal subpoenas. Hennepin and Ramsey County tell us that they were also on the receiving end of a subpoena for county records related to federal immigration enforcement. A copy of a subpoena sent to Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey's office shows that the Department of Justice is demanding records, documents, and communications dating back to January 1st, 2025. This afternoon, we are also learning that Vice President J.D. Vance will be making a stop in Minneapolis tomorrow. A source tells NBC News that Vance is coming to meet with local leaders and community members for a roundtable discussion. They have not said who will be involved yet. This afternoon, St. Paul Mayor Kali Herr is speaking out after ICE broke down the door of a Munn man's home. Herr says that the man has no criminal history and is a U.S. citizen. Here's Heidi Wigdahl.
Do not talk to them!
Video quickly spread online of ICE agents detaining a St. Paul man while he was wearing only his underwear in sub-freezing temps.
They just take me out there without any clothes on, unless only the blanket, only my grandson's blanket, cover me, take me out there to the car. They didn't say anything that was wrong.
Chung Lee Scott Tao says ICE agents bashed open his door without showing a warrant. The 56-year-old says they then pointed their guns at him and his daughter-in-law and did not let him show his ID before detaining him.
When they took me out there, my grandson was picking on the window. After they took me, he was crying, looking for me. They tried to take a photo of me, but I didn't want to, right? And then they drove me all the way to Minneapolis, I don't know where. And we stopped middle of nowhere. My son grabbed my ID, showing to them. They just said, okay, you're good. So they free me. And they didn't say anything. They didn't say sorry or anything. They just, okay, you're good. They just laughed. That's about it.
The Department of Homeland Security said ICE targeted Tao's home looking for 2 convicted sex offenders. DHS claims they live with Tao and that Tao matched the description of the targets. The family says they don't know these individuals, and only Tao, his adult son, daughter-in-law, and grandson live with him.
It's just heartbreaking. I don't know anybody looking at that could ever justify the treatment of another human being in that way.
St. Paul Mayor Kali Her is friends with the family. She says this comes on top of her office receiving reports of federal officers going door to door, asking where the Asian people live.
And they're targeting you by the way that you look and the way that you sound. And it's unbelievable to me that that is how we're looking at executing our operations at the highest level of this country.
Tao told the Associated Press that he plans to file a civil rights lawsuit. The family has filed complaints with the ACLU of Minnesota and the Attorney General's office. This also comes as Tao is grieving the loss of his mother. She died last month. Right now, St. Paul City Council members calling on Governor Walz to pass an eviction moratorium through an executive order. Council members say that the order would help keep families in their homes, protecting them from ICE. The Minneapolis City Council unanimously passed a similar resolution last week. The governor has not responded. Today at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland, President Trump saying that he won't use military force to acquire Greenland, but said that European leaders should cede the territory to the United States for global security reasons.
It's the United States alone that can protect this giant mass of land, this giant piece of ice, develop it and improve it and make it so that it's good for Europe and safe for Europe and good for us. And that's the reason I'm seeking immediate negotiations to once again discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States, just as we have acquired many other territories throughout our history, as many of the European nations have. This would not be a threat to NATO. This would greatly enhance the security of the entire alliance, the NATO alliance.
And speaking of Washington, D.C., taking a live look from our nation's capital, where tomorrow House lawmakers will vote on a massive funding bill to avoid a government shutdown. The more than 1,000-page bill includes money for the Department of Defense, Health and Human Services, and Homeland Security. Experts say that the Department of Homeland Security portion will likely be a point of contention for Democrats after an ICE agent shot and killed Renee Good in Minneapolis earlier this month. The package would keep ICE funding essentially flat at $10 billion for the rest of the fiscal year. GOP leaders say that they will hold a separate vote on the Homeland Security part of the package to give Democrats the opportunity to oppose it without shutting down the government. Stick with us. We got more news and weather coming up after the break.